Sitting on 15 acres off East Speedway Boulevard is one of the only rescue rehabilitation centers in southern Arizona. At Tucson Wildlife Center, rescuers work around the clock to save, rehabilitate, and release Arizona's native animals back into the wild. I got a behind-the-scenes look at the Wildlife Center during their busiest season to see how they're giving injured and orphaned animals a second chance at life.
Our whole goal is to release them, rehab them, help them, release them back in their natural habitat. That's what we do.
At the Tucson Wildlife Center, there's only one goal: to rehabilitate as many animals as possible and return them to the wild with little to no human interaction.
We are cognizant about not having human interaction as little as possible. We'll wear a lot of times what's called ghillie suits, which is camouflage to feed them so they don't know they're really interacting with a human, because we're cognizant of not imprinting animals. Plus, once they get imprinted, they don't do well in the wild.
The center has a 70% success rate, but their biggest challenge? Finding safe places to release these animals.
Release sites are getting more and more difficult to find, especially for things like bobcats and javelinas. A lot of their problems has been we've encroached on their habitat. This is us giving back to our native wildlife.
For orphaned animals like the bobcats held safely behind closed doors, the center uses a surprising strategy: foster moms from the same species.
When we get a baby bobcat in, we have foster mom bobcat, and they can help raise them. We'll keep them for about 6 months because they're usually stay with their mom about 6 months.
For birds like this feather-singed raven, recovery is a step-by-step process.
They go from the hospital, they'll stay in the ICU while they're on medication and getting medical care. Once they are out of medical care, they'll come into the smaller pens and get acclimated to the wild. And then when they're closer to being released, we'll bring them into the flight cages so they can really get those muscles built up and get their flight conditioning.
And with monsoon, the team is bracing for its busiest season yet.
I'm going to bet we get a brown pelican.
The Wildlife Center wants to remind the public, if you see an injured animal, don't assume it needs help, especially young birds during fledgling season. Call the experts first. If you are interested in volunteering or have a question about a recently found animal, you can contact Tucson Wildlife Center. You can find that information on our website, KOLD.com. And if you were wondering about that elusive brown pelican right on schedule over the 4th of July holiday weekend, one did come in for a little TLC. You can see here, looks like he's struggling, but he's having fun, and he will be released back into the wild once he is better. Kind of got lost in his migration cycle, and somebody said, hey, I found one, and brought him in. He will be released, don't worry. It does look like they're like holding him back, like he's about to attack, but he doesn't know that they're here to save him.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what they do. One of the interesting ones that we saw, and I showed it here, was there was a crow that had been burned. They say, they think in a house fire, and one of the trees near it got caught in the fire, and he couldn't get out in time. So its feathers were so singed, hurts its flight pattern and everything. So they had a foster crow in there, which is the one that's a little more black look, or not a crow, it was a raven in there that was helping kind of foster them back together. And then I guess they're going to release them together.
The fostering thing is so fascinating.
It's really fascinating.
I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
You don't think about that.
Exactly, especially because they don't want to interact with them too much, so they let another animal of the same species interact with them, so they still like, oh, I'm learning from my people.
Probably go back out into the wild and not feel like they've been a pet.
Exactly, and not rely on humans too much for food.